So another thing that's gotten popular lately talking about protein is collagen, sort of like a certain specific, very specific type of protein. So much so that people are recommending collagen pills and collagen supplements. And where do you stand on the subject of collagen and how that fits into a healthy nutritional pattern?
I love nose to tail eating because it makes sense to me from an evolutionary perspective.
Yeah.
And I do think that that's a good way to look at anything when it comes to diet is through an evolutionary lens. And so it would make sense to eat collagen and connective tissue and the whole animal nose to tail. On the flip side, every bit of protein you eat is just broken down into amino acids before you even absorb them into your body. So I'm never telling anyone, oh my gosh, you have to go out and eat X pounds of collagen a day just, to get enough glycine. Because basically if you're eating, ground beef or an egg, or if you're eating any kind of roughly whole animal food source, you're going to get plenty, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I never tell anyone to take supplements. I think it's not really... if you have the extra money for collagen supplements, I would say just go out and buy, some high quality animal sources. Like just try to eat the whole cow. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, the nose to tail, we say it a lot, but a lot of people have a hard time doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Either psychologically they're hesitant to do it, or they have a hard time finding organ meats or, true nose to tail type foods. What are some practical tips you can give people on how to incorporate more of the concept of nose to tail eating?
Sure. Well, first of all, anytime you're ingesting an entire organism, you're getting this nose to tail type phenomenon. So like eating an egg, for example, would be spectacular because you're eating the entire organism. Or eating small fish where you're eating the whole thing. Mussels, clams, oysters, shellfish, small fish like sardines. You're eating the entire organism. You're getting all the connective tissue. You're eating all the cartilage and the bones. Ground beef, it's not only is it the very cheapest protein you can get, but there's tons of connective tissue and stuff thrown in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I like eggs. I like ground beef. I like ingesting seafood in its entirety, like clams and oysters and mussels and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective because most people, when they think nose to tail, they think I need to eat liver, I need to eat kidney and brain and heart, but you're saying no. Let's focus on other organisms, but the whole organism. I think that's a good perspective.
Yeah, honestly, I never eat liver. I never eat any organ meats, but I'm eating the heck out of. Can I say heck on this podcast?
You can say.
I'm eating the heck out of eggs and sardines and oysters. I eat that stuff all the time.
I think keto and low carb is very ruminant and meat focused. So it's a good perspective that there's a lot of other sources out there that are really good sources that we can still focus on.
테드 박사의 머리부터 꼬리까지 먹기 개념은 오히려 해외에서 더 낯설고 거부감을 갖고 있는 것 같습니다. 우리나라는 사골, 곱창, 도가니, 순대, 닭발, 껍데기, 내장탕 등 가축의 다양한 부위를 즐겨 먹는 식문화가 있어서 오히려 이런 방식을 더 쉽게 받아들일 수 있는 환경인 것 같습니다. 물론 간이나 내장처럼 손질이 어렵고 요리가 익숙하지 않은 부위를 식단에 활용하기란 쉽지 않은데요. 그런 점에서 테드 박사가 소개한 조개류나 작은 생선을 통째로 먹는 방식은 실용적이면서 누구나 도전해볼 수 있는 정말 유용한 팁인 것 같습니다. 저도 마침 이 기준에 꼭 맞는 식재료를 하나 소개해드리고 싶은데요. 바로 열빙어입니다. 저는 개인적으로 건강도 건강이지만 질리지 않고 이 식단을 오래 지속하려는 목적으로 다양한 식재료를 구입해서 먹어보는 편인데요. 최근 먹어본 열빙어는 손질 없이 간편하게 조리할 수 있고 살은 물론 뼈, 내장, 알까지 전부 함께 먹을 수 있어 머리부터 꼬리까지 모두 먹기의 기준에 정말 딱 들어맞는 생선이죠. 열빙어는 캐나다나 노르웨이 등 차가운 바다에 서식하는 냉수성 소형어종으로 단백질과 오메가3 지방산이 풍부하고 소형어종 특성상 중금속이나 환경오염 걱정도 적은 편입니다. 해동한 열빙어를 별다른 손질 없이 에어프라이어에 구워내기만 하면 되는데요. 저는 여기에 마이노멀 마요네즈 그리고 간장과 와사비를 살짝 섞은 소스에 곁들여 먹었습니다. 비린 맛이 거의 없고 수분이 날아가면서 약간 반건조 생선처럼 쫀득한 식감이 느껴지더라고요. 그리고 알이 톡톡 터지기도 하고 부위마다 맛과 식감이 다양해서 저는 아주 맛있게 먹었습니다. 조리도 간편하고 가격도 부담이 없어서 요즘 제 식단에 자주 활용하고 있는 식재료예요. 제품 구입은 영상 하단에 상품 정보를 확인해 주세요.
Now, what about protein supplements? You briefly touched on, pea protein supplements versus whey versus egg white supplements and protein shakes, and we hear a lot about people, taking extra protein with shakes. I know you're a protein proponent, but do you see a difference in, again, the quality and the need of real food protein versus protein shakes and supplements?
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't like protein supplements. I'm not a huge fan of whey powder. Whey is actually this byproduct of the cheese making process. It's just a cast off. It's an unwanted cast off of cheese making. They used to just feed it to pigs, or they used to fertilize soil with it or throw it away, literally. And then someone figured out you could evaporate it and dry it and sell it to bodybuilders for like $50 a tub. So I'm not a huge fan. You get way more satiety with real food than drinking food. So you basically never want to drink your calories. You also the speed at which the protein is delivered to your system is probably better if you're eating a steak instead of drinking whey protein. So I typically don't tell anyone to ever buy protein supplements. I usually don't recommend them. And for me, it's more of like an emergency level thing. Like if you just don't have time to eat, you might want to grab something like that. Yeah. But it's not my first choice.
Got it.
영상에서는 테드 박사가 단백질 보충제에 대해 다소 부정적인 입장을 보였지만 최근 그의 다른 영상을 보면 생각이 조금 달라진 것 같습니다. 물론 여전히 보충제는 보조적인 수단이고 음식을 통한 단백질 섭취를 우선시하지만 또 필요할 땐 즐겨 활용하기도 하더라고요. 이와 관련된 영상도 추후에 따로 소개해 드릴게요. 보충제는 말 그대로 보충용이죠. 이걸 주식이 아니라 부족한 단백질을 메우는 용도로 사용한다면 식단에서 훌륭한 무기가 될 수 있습니다. 단백질을 섭취하는 가장 이상적인 방법은 아니지만 만성적인 단백질 결핍 상태로 지내는 것보다는 훨씬 낫다고 생각합니다. 저는 단백질 섭취가 부족한 날이나 달달한 간식이 당길 때 보충제를 종종 활용합니다. 저는 보충제를 고를 때 원물 함량이 높은 것을 우선적으로 고르고 그 다음은 맛을 중요하게 생각합니다. 의외로 제품마다 맛 차이가 크거든요. 먹을 때마다 고역인 제품도 있지만 반대로 먹는 게 기다려질 만큼 맛있는 것도 있습니다. 제가 꾸준히 이용하고 있는 보충제는 베네틴 포대유청입니다. 원물 함량이 94%에 달하고 제 입맛에는 너무 과하게 달지 않고 딱 먹기 좋더라고요. 유당 불내증이 있는 분은 유당이 제거된 WPI 제품을 선택하는 게 좋고 저처럼 우유를 소화하는데 문제가 없는 분들은 WPC가 가성비 면에서 훨씬 유리합니다. 관심 있으신 분들은 영상의 왼쪽 하단에 상품 정보를 확인해 주세요.
All right, so transitioning a little bit away from protein now to what you're also known for is the exercise guy, but not just any exercise. You're known as like the 15-minute get fit, get ripped exercise guy. And I've heard lots of people say, I'm so upset at you that you can have the physique you have and be as fit as you are at only 15 minutes. And I think it's important to realize not everybody's going to have that response, right? Not everybody's going to be able to be you with 15 minutes of exercise. But tell us your general concept when you approach patients of how to implement exercise, the importance of exercise, and specifically what type of exercise translate to maximal health.
Gotcha. Okay. So there's really basically two types of exercise. There's resistance exercise, and then there's cardio exercise, right? And you're getting specific benefits from these. When you're doing resistance exercise, you're trying to get more lean mass. You're trying to get more muscle. And it's phenomenal for health. Like the more muscle you have, the higher your glucose tolerance, your carbohydrate tolerance, the longer you're going to live, literally. And the same thing with cardio. You're basically putting a stress on your body, hormetic stressor, that's going to make it better later. Also with cardio, you're depleting muscle glycogen, and after you deplete muscle glycogen, your fat oxidation goes through the roof and your insulin sensitivity goes through the roof. Your glucose disposal goes way up. And so you get all these massive health benefits. Depleting glycogen from your whole body is massive, like metabolic reset. So I like people to do two forms of exercise, cardio and resistance. And I like high intensity exercise because it's more time efficient. You can always trade intensity for duration when it comes to exercise. In other words, you could do a minute of all out 20-second sprint intervals, and you're basically going to get the same benefits you'd get from just walking for an hour or two. So the idea is you always can trade intensity for time. So I like people to do the highest intensity they can generate on some sort of cardio. That could be just jump squats, jumping up and down. That could be doing jumping jacks. It could be jumping rope. That could be just sprinting. That could be running up flights of stairs. You're trying to maximize your energy output to deplete glycogen and ramp up your fat oxidation. And it's really, really good for metabolism. On the muscle resistance side, the goal is to generate the highest tension you can possibly get in your muscles for as long as possible. And it only takes maybe 30 to 60 seconds to max out on a set of pull-ups or push-ups or any kind of pushing or pulling or leg type exercise. So I have this really, really, really tiny protocol where you're basically doing a pushing resistance exercise like a push-up, a pulling resistance exercise like a row or a pull-up, a leg resistance exercise like a squat, and you're doing them all to failure, basically, which might only take 30 to 90 seconds. And the goal is you send this signal to your muscles that they're inadequate the way they are, and they have to be stronger or you're going to die, right? So you do this super high intensity failure type workout, which might take just a few minutes, and you actually get this adaptation where you have more muscle the next day. And I just think everyone should be doing this. It's so important to put tension in your muscles this way and increase the headroom of how much work you're capable of. You're just going to live longer. I mean, look at people in the ICU who are in bed for 2 weeks and then they can't even walk, or we have to send people to physical therapy to walk up a flight of stairs after just laying in bed for 2 weeks. Yeah. And, as important as diet is, you really start realizing how important generating tension in your muscles is if you've ever had your leg in a cast or you've been in bed for 2 weeks or something. I mean, your body just falls apart so rapidly. In a way, it's just as important as diet, in my opinion.
That's a great perspective on that. It's not all about athletic performance. It's not all about how much you can bench press or squat, but it's about being able to regain your function after a severe setback like that. And the better starting point you have, the easier it's going to be to regain function. So it sounds like the key to your exercise program then is to failure. It sounds like the key.
Intensity, yes, absolutely, intensity. Mm-hmm.
Now, what about someone who can't even do a push-up or can't even do a pull-up? Like, how do they even get started when they're starting from such a sedentary baseline?
Right, it's all on a spectrum. So you start with something that's easier, like a wall push-up. If you can't do a push-up, you start with a wall push-up. You do wall push-ups to failure. A week later, now you can do a push-up on the back of a couch or on a kitchen countertop. Once you've done that long enough, you can do push-ups off of a bench, and then pretty soon you're doing knee push-ups, and then you're doing regular push-ups, and then you're doing diamond push-ups, and then you're doing one-arm push-ups, and then you're just the strongest person anybody knows. And it's just this slow, gradual progression from just, oh my gosh, I can't even do one wall push-up, to as high as you want to go.
Yeah. That's a good point about adapting it to the person and getting them
progression.
started.
It's progression. You start super easy. Just, get in the door with one wall push-up and then just take it from there.
Now, what about rest periods? Is this something that you do or would recommend your patients do every day? Or do you think since you're going to failure, you need a day or two for rest and recovery before going again? What's your time frame look like?
So there's kind of three variables you can alter when it comes to exercise. There's intensity, there's frequency, and then there's volume, right? I like maxing out intensity because it's the most time efficient. Then when it comes to frequency and volume, I also like frequency because it's more time efficient as well. So I like high frequency, maybe daily, maybe every other day. So I'm typically recommending people do these sorts of exercises, if not daily, maybe every other day. But the volume is so low that you're just not going to be overtrained. You know what I mean? Yeah. It might take you 2 minutes to hit absolute failure multiple times on a pulling exercise, and you're definitely going to be able to recover from that in a day or two.
Okay.
여기서 운동 볼륨이란 운동 중 사용한 중량, 반복 횟수, 세트 수를 곱한 값, 즉 총 운동량을 의미합니다. 테드 네이먼 박사는 이 볼륨을 낮추는 대신 강도와 빈도를 높이는 방식으로 짧은 시간 안에 최대의 효과를 내는 전략을 제시하고 있습니다. 그런데 여기서 중요한 점이 있습니다. 저는 운동이든 식단이든 처음부터 효율성을 따지기보다는 다소 비효율적으로 보이더라도 지속 가능성과 적응 과정을 고려하는 것이 훨씬 중요하다고 생각합니다. 예를 들어 네이먼 박사는 실패 지점까지 밀어붙이라고 강조하지만 기초 체력이 없는 사람이 무작정 그렇게 따라하면 실패 지점에 이르기 전에 자세가 무너지고 부상의 위험이 높아질 수밖에 없습니다. 운동 숙련자는 스쿼트를 처음부터 끝까지 일정한 자세로 유지할 수 있지만 초보자들은 힘들면 무릎이 모이고 허리가 숙여지겠죠. 그래서 그는 초보자라면 쉬운 동작부터 시작해 단계적으로 난이도를 높이는 방식, 즉 점진적 과부하를 강조했습니다. 이건 단순히 운동에만 적용되는 게 아니라 모든 배움과 변화의 과정에서 적용할 수 있는 중요한 원칙이라고 생각합니다. 그런데 우리는 운동을 배울 땐 이렇게 단계별로 접근하는 게 당연하다고 여기면서도 새로운 식단을 시작할 땐 중간 과정 없이 한 번에 확 바꾸려고 합니다. 특히 대사적으로 건강하지 않은 분이 갑자기 탄수화물을 극도로 줄이거나 처음부터 카니보어 식단처럼 극단적인 방식으로 시작하면 몸이 적응하지 못하고 결국 중도에 포기하게 될 가능성이 큽니다. 키토식은 우리가 평소에 잘 사용하지 않던 지방 대사 시스템을 깨우는 식단입니다. 변화의 폭이 큰 만큼 점진적인 접근이 필수적입니다. 탄수화물을 서서히 줄이고 단백질과 지방 섭취량은 조금씩 늘리는 식으로 식단 구성을 단계적으로 바꿔나가는 게 좋습니다. 운동은 점진적으로 강도를 서서히 높인다는 메시지는 단순히 운동 팁을 넘어 식단을 포함한 모든 라이프 스타일 변화에 적용할 수 있는 핵심 원칙이라고 생각합니다.
And what about the concept that people are sometimes afraid of exercise because it makes them hungrier and it sort of gives them an excuse to eat more, and sort of the psychological side of things that exercise can then sort of harpoon weight loss and sticking to a nutritional program?
Well, the interesting thing here is that if you're doing low intensity, steady state cardio, let's say you're just lightly jogging for an hour or two, yeah, you're probably going to be hungrier after that and you might overshoot and eat more. But for anybody out there who's done a high intensity exercise protocol where you do Tabata sprints, sprint as hard as you can for 30 seconds, rest for 30 seconds, one thing you'll notice after that is you're just absolutely not hungry because your blood sugar goes up a fair amount. You get this release of glucose from the liver. And a lot of people notice that they're actually less hungry after they do this. And I encourage people to try this. If you're hungry, try doing 30-second jump squat Tabatas. You jump up and down as many times as you can in 30 seconds, rest for 30 seconds, do it again for 30 seconds, rest again for 30 seconds. Do a couple cycles of that and see how hungry you are afterwards. A lot of people are just really not hungry. So I'm not convinced that high-intensity exercise is going to automatically make people hungrier and make them eat more. I think it's the exact opposite.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, I know from my days training for triathlons, going for long bike rides and long runs, I was just starving afterwards, but doing a good, hard 30-minute session at the gym, completely different, not as hungry.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people see that. All right, so we've heard a lot about the philosophies of Dr. naiman, and tell us now about Ted. Ted the family man, Ted the day in the life. What does it look like for you? How these health concepts you apply to your everyday life and to your family life?
Right. So I'm married. I have a beautiful wife and a beautiful 12-year-old daughter, and so we have this wonderful little family. And the whole family is really into diet and exercise. My daughter's going to the gym and working out, and my wife is really careful with her diet, and everybody is healthy and happy. And then I'm a primary care doctor at one of the biggest medical centers in Seattle, so I basically just punch a clock there and see patients, and it's very rewarding. I have a really great patient population. So I love my job. This diet exercise thing is kind of a hobby, but I'm lucky enough to be able to incorporate it into my job as well. So I'm really grateful. The hobby and the personal health journey and the job all sort of align in the same direction.
Yeah.
And then just on a personal level, I'm addicted to Ultimate Frisbee. Like, I just basically live to play Ultimate. It's one of my favorite things ever. I am a bassist, so I've played in a lot of bands and done a lot of local music scene in Seattle kind of stuff.
All right.
And that's kind of me on a personal level.
Multiple levels to Dr. Ted.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't have daughters. I have two boys, but I can imagine a teenage daughter might be a challenge in terms of wanting to instill these healthy habits, especially when she's out in her own social circles and she wants to fit in and she wants to assert her independence. And I guess I shouldn't just say daughter. That can happen with any teenager, really. So are you starting to see any of that creep up with your relationship, and or you're wanting your daughter to keep up with these healthy habits?
Oh yeah. Well, my daughter's 12, and of course a 12-year-old girl is basically she's ready to move out and get her own place, and she realizes her parents are just insane.
Yeah.
The way we handle it is at home, we just surround the kids surrounded with healthy food. Like, okay, we're having, here's all our healthy food. We've got tons of steak and eggs, and we have tons of meat, and we have tons of veggies, and we have tons of low sugar fruit, and it's just like good food everywhere, right? Lots of good food. But then when she goes out, we don't restrict her at all. We just tell her to eat whatever she wants. And it really ends up kind of working out because, she'll go to a birthday party and eat birthday cake, and then she's like, that is kind of sweet. And she kind of gets to the point where she looks around and she looks at what people are eating, and she's like, wow, are they really going to eat that, And honestly, it's just like lead by example. She sees how her parents eat. She sees the food that we have at home. She's free to do whatever she wants. And it seems to work out, at least so far.
You certainly have a laid-back approach that seems to work because you lead by example. And I think that's so important. Yeah, the other day, my son was in a place where there was, this big buffet of all these like candies and cookies and sweets. And he asked if he could have a cookie. And we said, sure, everybody's having cookies, whatever. We're not going to fight about it here, and we'll let you do it. And then he went back for a second cookie. And then he went back for a third cookie. And then later that night, he was complaining how his stomach was bothering him. And I was secretly very happy. But he said, why didn't you stop me from going back for more cookies? And it was a great opportunity to have this discussion. It's not our job to tell you what to do. It's our job to educate you and show you the way and help you make your own decisions. And sometimes you sort of have to let people fall to learn. And maybe it's the same thing with the birthday cake, right? She realized this is pretty sweet. Maybe I didn't need it. But it's that recognition that, wow, look at the way people are eating. Because in our society, we don't want to be normal. Like the normal in society is broken and backwards. And so you almost have to be abnormal and stand out, which can be hard for kids. So I like your approach. It's a relaxed approach that seems to be working and hopefully continues to work.
Yeah, I'll keep you posted.
Keep us posted.
테드 네이먼 박사는 단백질 중심의 식단인 PE다이어트를 직접 고안했고, 최근에는 영양 전문가로서 칼로리 대비 포만감 개념을 공동 개발했습니다. 하바라는 식단관리 앱에서는 식품에 대한 포만감 점수를 제공하는데, 여기서 그가 개발한 점수 체계가 적용되었습니다. 또한 그는 이와 관련하여 얼마 전 satiety per calorie 라는 신간을 출간했습니다. 여기서 그는 PE다이어트에서 강조한 단백질 비율뿐 아니라 식이섬유, 에너지 밀도 등 다양한 식품 특성이 포만감과 체중 조절에 미치는 영향을 총체적으로 다루고 있습니다. 이처럼 그는 단백질 중심, 포만감 중심의 식단을 강조하는 활동을 이어나가고 있는데요. 무엇보다 인상 깊은 건 그가 자신이 만든 이론을 직접 몸에 적용해서 50세가 넘는 나이에도 이렇게 멋진 체형과 건강 지표를 유지하고 있다는 점입니다. 저는 개인적으로 이렇게 몸으로 이론을 증명하는 사람이야말로 정말 훌륭한 전문가라고 생각합니다. 요즘 보면 말은 그럴싸하게 하면서 자신의 몸 상태는 형편없는 사람들이 수두룩하니까요. 이런 태도는 자녀의 교육 방식에서도 잘 드러납니다. 테드 박사는 자녀들을 말로 설득하기보다 직접 모범을 보이는 방식을 택합니다. 저는 이런 방식이야말로 진짜 교육이고 가장 강력한 설득 방식이라고 생각해요. 혹시 여러분도 또 키토 식단을 해보고 너무 좋아서 가족이나 친구들에게 열심히 설명해 보신 적 있으신가요? 저도 처음엔 자주 그랬었는데요. 요즘에는 굳이 먼저 이야기를 꺼내지 않아요. 왜냐하면 상대방은 건강에 관심도 별로 없는데 먼저 이런 말을 꺼내면 설득되지도 않을 뿐더러 제가 괜히 유난 떠는 것처럼 느껴지더라고요. 그러니 여러분이 가족이나 주변을 설득하고 싶다면 말보다는 먼저 내 몸을 변화시켜 주변 사람들이 나에게 호기심을 갖게 만드세요. 눈에 띄게 변화된 내 모습을 보고 주변 사람들이 먼저 너 뭐 했냐고 물어본다면 그때가 바로 대화를 시작할 최고의 타이밍입니다. 그러니 말로 설득하려 하지 말고 먼저 본보기가 되어보세요. 그게 훨씬 강력한 설득 도구가 될 것입니다. 테드 박사의 색다른 관점이 굉장히 흥미롭지 않나요? 저는 더 궁금해지는데요. 차후에 본 인터뷰 영상의 한국어 더빙과 테드 박사의 포만감 이론을 소개하는 영상도 준비해 보겠습니다. 이상한 다이어트였습니다.